Keith Thurman just made a statement, one that ended Brock Jarvis' night in brutal fashion. But the real story isn't just the knockout, it's how he set it up. There was one key tactic that made all the difference, and by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why it worked, and why Thurman's next fight needs to be much bigger than what people are expecting. Everyone's talking about Tim Tszyu, Tim Tszyu's been called out, but I've got an idea for an opponent that I think might shock you, so stick around to the end of this video as we deep dive into Keith Thurman versus Brock Jarvis. Hello everyone and welcome back to a guy called Henry. Damn, it's been a bit busier than I predicted it would be recently, people. I've just been away in Sydney for the last couple of days for a little bit of work. And it was very enjoyable. I hadn't been to Sydney before. And this fight was actually on in Sydney while I was there. And I thought about trying to go, but then I thought, you know what? I haven't got the time. But needless to say, the channel is back. We're back again. And we're back with a video about Keith One-Time Thurman against Brock Jarvis. A fight that I was confused to see be made. I wasn't sure who it was for, really, because I know that sounds like an odd thing to say, but when a fight typically gets made, when there's not a belt on the line, when one guy's unknown and one guy's coming back from, essentially the wilderness from what I thought was retirement, you do sort of ask questions. You wonder, what's going on here. And I suppose I wasn't sure if Brock Jarvis was this fantastic young prospect I'd just never seen before or heard of that his promoters were investing in. So they thought, let's get a guy who's been there and done that, get our young lad invested in, get him a win against a big name, then get him on the world stage. I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was Keith Thurman trying to make a legitimate comeback. Or indeed if they were trying to position Keith Thurman to be an opponent for one of their other fighters. We will get into all of this and talk about it. But I have to say, I thought it was a really interesting performance from Keith Thurman. I learned a few things, and honestly, I think it's really easy to forget how good Keith Thurman was, and we now have a vague idea of how good he currently is. But I think he's an overlooked champion from the past. I think he is somebody that maybe you didn't appreciate him until he was gone, because he was in an era when the welterweight division was still absolutely stacked. Coming off that Mayweather era where there was all these guys around, and the next generation that came through was also very good. I think it's easy to forget about him sometimes because he has got that one loss on his record to what was quite an old Pacquiao. I remember that fight when it got made, I thought, no chance Pacquiao beats Thurman. I was so high on Keith Thurman. I thought he was such a good fighter. And I think because of that Pacquiao loss, because of the injuries, because of the issues he's had outside of the ring, that's meant he's kind of disappeared for periods of time. I really feel like Keith Thurman is an underappreciated champion. I want to know what you think about Keith Thurman. Get in the comments below. Let me know what you think about Keith Thurman's career, because when you go through his box record, and we'll just pull it up for a moment. When you go through his record, I forgot about that Mario Barrios fight. Mario Barrios now, of course, is the champion at 147 pounds. And he was someone that Keith Thurman took on after, it was almost 3 years out of the ring after that loss to Pacquiao. Split decision loss, but I do think Pacquiao won that fight. And it was frustrating watching Thurman's career to an extent because you felt like there were so many big opportunities at that time that he could have taken. And he had a good career, but I always wanted to see him fight Kell Brook. I remember feeling that way. It was a fight that I would have absolutely loved to see, but wins against Josecito Lopez, Danny Garcia was a good win at the time, Sean Porter, Luis Collazo, Robert Guerrero. That was the point. Robert Guerrero was the point where he really sort of stepped up. But as I say, I was high on Keith Thurman for a long time. And I do think I look back and I think looking at the welterweight division now, looking at a lot of different elements of boxing, I do feel like I maybe didn't appreciate how good he was. I knew he was good and he did achieve a lot. He was a two-time world champion, but I don't know. I just had this feeling about him that there was more. There was more to be done. And maybe now, at this late stage in his career, at the age of 36, he can come back and he can do something. Maybe, just maybe. Before I try and answer that question for you, don't forget to bang a like on this video. Don't forget to subscribe to a guy called Henry. Hit that notification bell. Still trying to grow the channel as much as we can, as quickly as possible. And don't forget to get in the comments below. What did you make of this fight? What do you think Keith Thurman's got to offer to the 154-pound division? I suppose that's where he'll be rather than 147, given he's a bit later in his career now. But I am very, very intrigued. I'm very intrigued. And I think there's options for Thurman. I alluded to it in my intro, and we will get into that. But first, I noticed a tactical key in this fight. I'm not going to go crazy on the tactical breakdown. It was 3 rounds. There's only so much you can say about a 3-round fight. But I will just talk you through what I saw in there from a tactical perspective. And of course, Brock Jarvis isn't a particularly high-level opponent for Thurman, but I still thought that Thurman read the fight extremely well and did some really interesting things in there. So I want to break down this key component for you that I spotted that I think really was the decisive factor in this fight and in Keith Thurman getting that knockout in round 3. So round 1 of this fight, it was very much a case of I feel like Thurman wanted to go in there and use his experience to let Jarvis burn himself out a little bit. And he alluded to this in his post-fight interview. And I really noticed with Jarvis on the way to the ring, the way that he was throwing his shots when he was up close on Thurman. And he likes to work in close, as I understand it, Jarvis. But he looked very, very tense. He looked angry and he looked tense. And he didn't look like he was fully in control of the how do I put this? Of his own mind. I think he was very anxious going into this. And you would be. It was a massive step up in quality for him. But you could just see in the way he was throwing his punches, there was so much in them. He didn't look like he was really relaxed and flowing. And I just thought, this guy looks like he's going to gas. And I think Thurman, being the experienced operator that he is, I think he sensed this. And there was moments in round one where Thurman kind of just sat in the pocket and let Jarvis unload. Thurman didn't get really hurt at any point, but it was not a good look for him in round one. And you sort of thought, oh, is this Thurman shaking off the ring rust a bit? Is this Thurman about to get overwhelmed and be made to look old? But in reality, I think that he actually played on what Jarvis was doing in there. Jarvis looking, as I say, very tense, very aggressive. And you know, that's not how you want to be in a big fight and a big step up like this. Now, Jarvis doesn't look like a small guy. And I believe he had a strange career. I've looked through his box rec and he had a couple of years out. He was at 140 before. He's now up at 154. This was just a strange matchup to me. I never really understood it. But anyway, an opportunity for Thurman to get back in there. As I say, an opportunity for him to rebuild. And as I say, I think they're trying to set up that Tim Tszyu fight. But regardless, round one, Jarvis comes out. He's like a train. He's on Thurman. He's trying to make something happen. Thurman gets through round one. It's not too damaging, but you don't really want to be going through the fight like that if you're Thurman. There was one moment where he scored a lovely counter shot. But the thing that I really want to highlight in this fight comes from round two onwards. Now, it's this moment here. Basically, Thurman here, in this round, what he did much better was he got on his jab, firstly. But secondly, he made much better use of his movement, his lateral movement, and he made angles. And the key shot here was this right hand here. This right hand. And I'd say the lack of sophistication in the way that Brock Jarvis was defending. Because Brock Jarvis, very straight up and down, sits in the pocket. And in terms of how he approaches you, it's just straight. It's just straight lines. Comes straight at you. Marches in towards you. Not the best at cutting off the ring, I would say, based on what I saw there. But I will edge it forward here, and you'll see Thurman takes a hop to his right there. You see that? He starts here, and he hops in this direction here. So watch the hop. The hop comes. Boom. He lands there. So from that point, he's now changed the angle. He has made it so that he is now to this side of Jarvis's center line, which is really important because if you can get yourself to one side or the other of the center line, it sets up shots, right? And because, as I say, Jarvis's defense is fairly unsophisticated, it's very much a case of just get this guard up. It means that there's always going to be opportunities, if you are as accurate of a puncher as Keith Thurman is, to land shots. And even though you will hit some guard, you will make a dent. The best guys, when they're using their guards, they're being very reactive. They're moving the guard with the shots. They're rolling the shots a little bit too, whereas Jarvis was just in the pocket absorbing the shots. So what does Keith Thurman do here? He's taken that hop to the right. He's come into this position here. He's got himself to the right-hand side of that center line, which obviously perfectly lines up the right hand anywhere you like, really, to the head or to the body. What Keith Thurman does really well here is he goes to the body. So watch it. He slings it in. He actually takes another little hop to the right first. Slings it in. Boom, there. And it's possible because what you'll see here is as he lands here, Jarvis lifts his guard up. And he creates this space here at the body. Perfect opportunity for Thurman. And it's testament to Thurman's speed, Thurman's accuracy, Thurman's intelligence that he's able to read that. He dips down. He fires in that body shot. Boom. Lovely. Now, this is the key. And this sequence here is what gets it going. I think this is perfect. This setup is what creates the opportunity for Keith Thurman to actually stop Jarvis in round three. And I'll show you how it works. Once again here, second time in round two, he goes to the body. But this time it's a slightly different setup. So you'll see here. You see here. So this is something you'll see Bivol doing at a very high speed. He moves this way, but then he has a hard stop, and then he goes back this way again. And what that does is it just changes the angle. So watch. He goes across, then he stops. Boom. Bounces back to the center position, and they kind of rotate here. And as Jarvis comes in, again, his automatic reaction here, Jarvis, is to get his guard up. High guard there. And if you're Thurman, what you want to do is make him worry about that high guard. Make him think, by doing this, I'm exposing myself. Again, you can see the elbows are very flared, so there's space there. And as I say, because he sits in the pocket, he doesn't really take much of the sting off these shots. He's not even moving backwards to take the momentum off the punch. So what you end up with is a very impactful shot, even if it is through the guard. Anyway, what we'll see here is Thurman touches upstairs. Just touches the gloves with the jab, and that occupies them. And it's something, again, something we saw Bivol do really well against Beterbiev. Not that they're similar fighters at all, but it's just fresh in my mind. Touch the gloves, fire down low, boom, right hook to the body. You can see that's a lovely shot. And then Keith Thurman moves off at an angle. Now, this is the one that's really telling. Very similar setup again. Jarvis is walking forward straight into the pocket. Thurman touches him with the jab. In fact, Yeah, he just touches him with the jab there. Again, it occupies the guard. Jarvis now will be expecting the shot to come here because that's the space he's given Thurman. That's what Thurman's been doing. This time, what does Thurman do? He mixes it up and he throws upstairs. So as Brock is dipping, he's dipping down here, Brock, he's dipping down, which, you know, is not a bad shout, but what it does is it brings his head basically directly into the line of the shot. And even though he's got his guard up, there is still a small space there. And punching through the glove with direct impact like that is hard. Keith Thurman is a big puncher. He's a good puncher. The only reason he had less knockouts towards the end of his career was because he was in better opposition, really. But still a very good single puncher. He throws that in, boom, round the back of the guard there. Kind of hits the glove a little bit, and Jarvis is okay, but you see the variation. Low, low, high. Head body, if you want to quote the fighter. And again here, look at Keith Thurman's lateral movement in full display. So Jarvis is, you can see he's sort of lunging forward here. Thurman, though, has got space behind him, so he's moving backwards. But watch what Thurman does here. And again, it's all about getting to either side of that line. You either want to be round, you either want to set up a shot round here, or a shot round here. So watch, as Thurman goes back here, he squares his feet a little bit. And what that means is he can go side to side. So boom, lands there. He goes to his right, bounce. He goes to his, and as he lands there, you see he's planted his foot here. Jarvis has taken that as a trigger to step in. But what does that mean Thurman can do? Because he's got pressure on that foot, it means he can move this way. So he creates a small angle, bounces to the side, small angle. As Jarvis steps in, Thurman has got the outside. And you can see the line there. Thurman is on this side, and that opens up a shot to this side. So, boom, to the body again. Lovely shot. Thurman then circles away in the second part of the sequence. Again, it's the same thing. Watch, he bounces to his left. He plants his foot. Again, Jarvis's center line is here. He bounces left. He bounces to his right. He plants his foot. And then what that means is that as Jarvis is stepping in, he's coming very much like, he's coming from here rather than from here, which is where Jarvis would rather be right in front of you so he can work on the inside. So as he steps in there, gloves up, he's giving Keith Thurman the body again, and Thurman goes to the body again. Boom, lovely body shot. Now Thurman here capitalizing on something I noticed earlier in the fight, which is that Jarvis really, as I said, he really moves in straight lines. He's either going straight forwards or he's going straight backwards. There's not a lot of lateral movement, which means if you do get him going backwards, you can be aggressive and press him. And you see this from Thurman here. So what he does is he extends the jab hand, which, you know, it gives him the range, but, you know, because Jarvis has been getting hit with those big hooks to the body, he doesn't particularly want to take another one. So the guard goes up, occupied by the hand. He gives the body, but he doesn't want to take it to the body. So what does he do? He backpedals. He's running backwards here, and Thurman just steps in. He extends his lead hand for leverage, and then he swings in the overhand right. Boom. And unfortunately for Jarvis, because he is expecting that body shot there, and as I say, Thurman set this up with those body shots. Because he's expecting that, he's not expecting that. And so what is Thurman doing? He's going for that, obviously. So he slings it in, bosh. Great shot to the head from Thurman there. And then from there, Thurman, he lands a little body shot. He mixes it up a bit. You know, Jarvis is getting hurt here. Again here, uses his lateral movement, creates an angle, gets over to the side, boom. And from there, you know, Jarvis doesn't move, he doesn't react, doesn't do anything, so Thurman can just unload. Big shot upstairs, left hook. These are clean shots to the side of the head. They're powerful shots. Right hook, and then he sets up, you know, and this is where Jarvis is screwed because he's squared up. There's a gap. You can see there's a gap with his gloves here, and he sets up the trademark Thurman. Oh, he sets up the trademark Thurman left uppercut. Boom. Lovely, lovely shot. That's an absolutely beautiful shot. And there was a bit more after this. Jarvis gets up. Thurman takes him out very quickly. We don't really need to look at that because at the end of the day, by this point, Jarvis was done. And that final shot didn't require much setting up. Thurman just sort of stepped in and took him out. But the reason I wanted to show you all that is because I think that as much as Jarvis is a lower level of opposition, I do think that Keith Thurman looked pretty good in there. He looked smart. He looked sharp. He's punching hard. And I honestly think right now that if we can get a good Keith one-time Thurman back, who wouldn't want him? Who would not want him? As I said at the start of the video, his career was really, really frustrating for me because I've almost forgotten how good he was because he didn't do the things I thought he would. But Keith Thurman's a good boxer, man. He's a good boxer. He's a good puncher. And I actually remember he was one of the first fighters I was ever sort of told about when I was getting into boxing. I was like, I can't remember the first fight I watched. I think it was like, Hatton Mayweather. But, or was it Hatton Pacquiao? No, it was Hatton Pacquiao. But that was one of the first fights I watched, but I didn't have a consistent interest in it from that point. But when I was at uni, my mate Guy Mickles, who I lived in the basement of our house with, we were chatting about boxing and he was like, "Oh, mate," and he was big into it at the time, and he was like, "Mate, you got to check out this guy Keith Thurman." He was like, "I think he's gonna be really, really good." And that was when I first heard about him, and that would have been like 2012, I think. So I've kind of been aware of Keith Thurman for a long time, and I really look at his record and I go, he should have had more. He should have had more. And I think that a lot of it has been down to injuries. I think that he still has so much to give. And I understand that, you look back and you look at why he had that layoff after the Pacquiao loss, which I really felt he should have won that fight. But you look at the layoff after that Pacquiao loss. I think he got married in that time. I think I've read in places that his mind wasn't really on boxing anymore at that point. And I just wonder, and I heard his interview after the fight, and I felt convinced by what he was saying, which was that he's not back for money, he's back for legacy. Now, there will undoubtedly be a financial component to this. Of course, there is for every fighter. But there is something about Keith Thurman where I've always believed him when he said he's doing it for legacy, he's doing it for himself, for his career, and he wants to be involved in great fights. I do believe that about Keith Thurman. So I'd like to think and I'd like to hope that Keith Thurman, if he's back, it's because he's got lots left to give still. Now, admittedly, at 36, and especially in the welterweight division or super welterweight division, which is where it looks like he'll be campaigning, you can only have so much to give. But I think he looked pretty good in there, and I just wonder what he might be able to do. Now, I want to make a really big call here, because I made a video after I heard about the Canelo-Crawford fight being made, and I sort of speculated on, Canelo's going to fight twice this year. One is going to be against William Skull, gets him, nice and sharp. It'll have him in shape and ready for that Crawford fight at the end of the year. Crawford fights like once a year, so the talk has been, what's the point in Crawford having another fight, or don't risk it, or whatever. But to be honest with you, I watched this fight, and Tim Tszyu's been called out, and I did mention, I thought Tim Tszyu could be an interesting opponent for Crawford. I think Crawford would win that well, and I think that Tszyu needs to he needs to go away and sort himself out. He probably needs to get involved with a new camp. I think he needs to progress his style. He needs to make massive improvements after that Murtazaliev loss. And there's all this chat about Thurman against Tszyu. To be honest with you, though, I would rather see Keith Thurman fight Terence Crawford, because we never got to see it at welterweight. And I think it could be the perfect fight for Crawford to have at 154 pounds. It would do really good numbers. It would have a lot of interest. Keith Thurman's a fantastic dance partner in terms of out of the ring, the verbal sparring, the charisma that he brings to a fight. I think Thurman against Crawford before he has this fight at the end of the year would be great. If it was me making the decisions, that's what I would go for. That's what I would choose. And I just wonder, I'd be really interested to know, can Keith Thurman still make welterweight as well? Because if so, I think he could go in that division and be the best fighter. He really could. But there could be some massive fights for Keith Thurman if he can get himself in the mix, in the picture. I think this comeback will definitely help that, this comeback fight. But I think that he is a name still, and I think that big names will want to fight him. There's not enough talent in 47. 54, there's a lot of guys, but they're all killers. They're all beasts. I don't know how much I like his chances at 54, if I'm honest with you. If I was him, I'd be looking more at 47 and being like, what can I do there? Could he fight a Jerome Boots Ennis at 47? That would really interest me. So I think there's lots for Keith Thurman to do still. And I want you to get in the comments section below and let me know, what do you think is left for Keith Thurman in boxing? What do you think he's got left? Are you excited to see him come back? Because I didn't really think I cared. But then I watched him, and I remembered all the times I enjoyed watching him in his career, and all the potential that I thought he had that he didn't quite realize. And I don't know, it kind of makes me quite excited, but I do need to see him in there with a better opponent. I need to see him in there with more of just a bigger name, just someone who I know has got credit in the bank, someone that I know will actually reveal to me where Keith Thurman is at right now in his career. And I just wish the guy all the best. I really mean that. I hope that he has a fantastic comeback, and I hope he gets a few mega fights and then he sails off into the sunset, as you hope for every boxer. But anyway, guys, this has been a very quick sort of tactical breakdown, but also discussion about Keith Thurman. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do subscribe to a guy called Henry if you're new. I'm working on a few things at the minute. My personal life, I've got a lot going on with my business that I'm trying to really push forward at the moment. So the YouTube's been a little bit slower, but at the end of the day, guys, when something big is on, I'll always be around to cover it. It's just these news videos that I'm not fussed about, but I will try and go live more, and I will try and make more videos. But when there's a big fight, I'll always do lots of coverage. For me, though, I do want to be more consistent, and I've got another project that I'm thinking up at the minute as well, so that I can be more consistent with sort of big, fun, good content. But anyway, guys, as I say, subscribe, bang a like on the video, get in the comments, let me know your thoughts, and as I always say, on to the next one.